This link is for 4th grade, going along with the story The Country Mouse and the City Mouse. Go ahead and make sure your Treasures textbook is turned to page 690 and 691. This is where we're going to go ahead and get started. Of course, before we even start reading, I would like to go ahead and go over the vocabulary words that we're going to encounter in this unit. The first one is wistfully. If you look wistfully at something, you look with longing and sadness. As the school year began, I thought wistfully back to the long summer days with nothing to do. Eavesdropping. Someone who is eavesdropping is listening in on another person who is unaware. My little sister is good at eavesdropping on telephone conversations. Scuffling. Someone who is scuffling is walking without lifting his feet. We loved scuffling our feet in the autumn leaves. Acquaintance. If you make someone's acquaintance, you meet the person. The new student looked very thankful to be making another student's acquaintance. Jumble. A jumble is a messy pile of things. I saw a jumble of old games and toys at the yard sale. Scornfully. If you look scornfully at something, you show dislike or disgust. After getting shut out 15-0, the losing team looked at us scornfully. And logical. If an idea is logical, it makes sense and has good reason. We thought her suggestion about our plan was very logical. Okay, now I would like you to go ahead and direct your attention to page 690. Of course, before we get started, we're going to talk a little bit about our vocabulary strategy that we could always use when we're reading as a good reader. When we're reading, always using context clues or paragraph clues. These can help us out the meaning of unfamiliar words, okay? With that being said, let's go ahead and read the story, The Country Mouse and the City Mouse. It's retold by Jeff Banner. One day, Country Mouse invited an old friend from the city to visit her. Country Mouse welcomed City Mouse with a delicious meal of fresh barley and corn. City Mouse was very quiet, so Country Mouse asked her whether anything was wrong. I was just missing the city, she replied wistfully. You must come visit one day. There are lots of good things to eat. Country Mouse thought this was a good idea, so a few weeks later she traveled to the city. City Mouse invited her friend for dinner at the favorite restaurant. Country Mouse followed City Mouse as she tiptoed quietly into a cupboard and listened. So what are we doing? Asked Country Mouse. Shh. We're doing a bit of eavesdropping, City Mouse whispered. When the cook leaves for the night, we can help ourselves to the lovely bag of sugar over there. A light went out and it grew quiet. The City Mouse nibbled a hole in the bag and Country Mouse took the tiniest taste. I tasted anything so wonderful in my life. And just then the mice heard a scuffling coming from behind the cupboard door. Run for your life, screamed City Mouse. That's Esperanza, the cook's rotten cat. City Mouse explained when they were safe. You don't ever want to make one swipe of her claws and it's curtains. She's asleep again. We can go back for some more sugar. But Country Mouse was too frightened to go back, so they went down to the basement instead. There they found a junk green bag stacked randomly against the wall. Country Mouse happily nibbled this and that. Then she saw something that made her mouth water. A hunk of cheese. Country Mouse was about to bite in. Stop! Yelled Country Mouse. Can't you see the trap? She said scornfully. One nibble and that big metal come crashing down. Country Mouse was horrified. The city was not the safest, most logical place for a mouse to live or visit. So Country Mouse went home and never visited the city again. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and focus on what our comprehension strategy is going to be this week. Of course, what we're going to be focusing on is theme. Fable, the theme may be expressed as the moral. To identify the theme, you need to think about the story structure. Think about what the characters do and say and what happens as a result. And then finally, ask yourself, what lesson or moral does the author want the reader to learn? Now, with that being said, we are going to use something that we call a theme map to help us figure out what the theme of every story that we're going to read in this unit. Of course, we're going to reread this story, The Country Mouse and the City Mouse, and we will actually use this theme map that you see to help us understand the theme of the story. Let me go over theme a little bit further in depth, and then we can go ahead and reread. Now, the theme, of course, is the overall message or idea that the author wants you as a reader to understand by reading the story. The theme may be stated directly, but many times it's implied, so it's not stated directly, but rather indirectly. Now, as a student, you should go back about identifying the theme of a story by thinking carefully about the characters' actions. For example, they can ask themselves how the plot of the story is affected by what the character says and does. You should then consider what message they're trying to get across. And once a story theme is identified, students can then decide how the author used the story to express a meaningful and important idea. With that being said, let's go ahead and begin rereading this story. And as we reread the story, of course, I'm going to stop and we'll fill out this theme chart. The Country Mouse and the City Mouse. Now one day, Country Mouse invited an old friend from the city to come visit her. Country Mouse welcomed City Mouse with a delicious meal of fresh barley and corn. City Mouse was very quiet, so Country Mouse asked her whether anything was wrong. "I was just missing the city," she replied wistfully. "You must come and visit one day. There are lots of good things to eat." So Country Mouse thought that this was a good idea, so a few weeks later, she traveled to the city. City Mouse invited her friend for dinner at her favorite restaurant, and Country Mouse followed City Mouse as she tiptoed quietly into a cupboard and listened. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Now, at the beginning of the story, I learned that the City Mouse is homesick during her visit to the country. She says what she misses are all the good things to eat. Now, I guess that's why the Country Mouse accepts her invitation to visit the city. I wonder if the Country Mouse will also be homesick when she travels to an unfamiliar place. As I keep reading, I'm going to see if the plot element of the story is going to be the same, and if that may be possibly the theme. With that being said, the first part of the theme map that we can put is that City Mouse is homesick during her visit to the country. Okay. And then, of course, the City Mouse invites Country Mouse to come visit, and Country Mouse thinks visiting the city is a good idea. With that being said, let's continue to read. "So, what are we doing?" asked Country Mouse. "Shh, we're doing a bit of eavesdropping," City Mouse whispered, "and when the cook leaves for the night, we can help ourselves to that lovely bag of sugar over there." A light went out and it grew quiet. City Mouse nibbled a hole in the bag, and Country Mouse took the tiniest taste. "I've never tasted anything so wonderful in my life," she cried. Just then the mice heard a scuffling sound coming from behind the cupboard door. "Run for your lives!" screamed City Mouse. "That's Esperanza, the cook's rotten cat," City Mouse explained when they were safe. "You don't ever want to make her acquaintance. One swipe of her claws and it's curtains. When she's asleep again, we can go back for more sugar." I'm going to stop right there. Of course, what's the next event that occurs when they're sitting in the cupboard and they're eating the sugar? What happens? Well, we know that Esperanza, the cat, chases the mice. Okay, let's continue to read. But Country Mouse was too frightened to go back, so they went down to the basement instead. There they found a jumble of grain bags stacked randomly against the wall. Country Mouse was happily nibbling on this and that, and then she saw something that made her mouth water. A hunk of cheese. Country Mouse was about to bite it when, "Stop!" yelled City Mouse. "Can't you see that's a trap?" she said scornfully. "One nibble and that big metal thing would come crashing down." The Country Mouse was horrified. The city was not the safest, most logical place for a mouse to live or visit. So Country Mouse went home and never visited the city again. Okay, so after Esperanza, the cat chases the mice. They're down in the basement, and Country Mouse, what almost happens to Country Mouse? Well, Country Mouse almost gets caught in a trap. Okay, and with that being said, what do you think the theme can be here? What do you think the theme's going to be? What do you think the overall moral or message of the story? Well, obviously, the City Mouse felt that the city was the best place for that mouse. And the Country Mouse felt the city was not a place for her, so the country was the best place for her. So with that being said, I'm going to say that our theme here is knowing where you belong is important. Okay, Now, with that being said, that goes ahead and concludes this link. Of course, if you have further questions or concerns about theme, go ahead and do not hesitate to contact me at the Learning Center, email, phone call, or at office hours.